Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Planet Zoo. We're back in Arcadia again, and today we're going to be building a llama habitat. We are back in the central part of Old Town and going to be developing this top island that you saw us create a long time ago, and also finishing off that new staff building that's there as well. I have to apologise in advance because I am a little bit unwell at the moment. I've got a bit of a head cold and it's affecting my voice, so if the quality of my delivery isn't as good this week, I do apologise. I'm nursing myself back to full health and I should be okay. The other thing we're going to do is just fully decorate this island, and this is going to be part of the continuing development of Old Town as we look to finish it and create a nice little tour of how we're getting on so far, maybe by episode 20, because there's been a lot more development than I was expecting. Also, you can see earlier on in the video, we have a lot more money now, and that is pretty much down to Pandy Trash Panda. Thank you very much for suggesting that I remove and shorten the queues to my transport rides. It's made a world of difference, and we're actually turning a nice little profit here, as well as the sales of our exhibit animals helping us out. So let's dive into the speed build and I'll talk a little bit more about our llama habitat. So I wanted to start by putting in a simple backstage area, and this is going to be like a barn with a storage area in there that staff will be able to walk through. We'll put some light decoration in, but it's not going to be something that's too distracting because it's not going to be an area that's frequently explored. It will look nice in the showcase at the end, but we don't need to put a great deal of effort into this one. What I want to shine about this habitat is putting in a lot of little montages and little scenes within the actual habitat itself. So there's going to be trees, enrichment items, with some lovely little showcase pieces that the llamas will be able to walk around and interact with, and all of that sort of stuff that makes habitats really stand out. Because when you're designing these outdoor habitats that don't have a building that the animals will be using significantly, you don't actually need to put a great deal of effort in. I mainly do this for myself because I would feel if I just had this empty shell of a building, it wouldn't feel right to me, even though you may never see the inside of the building. So we are using European stone and corrugated iron sheeting for the roof, and some Australian wood planks for the actual floor of the building. Other than that, we're just coming in with a couple of little bit of experimenting and stuff with the iron roof, because I wanted to have a little bit of an overhang on the entrance side, because I'd quite like to create a sort of shaded area or covered area that our guests can use to observe the llamas when they're in their sleeping quarters, which is actually going to be the second part of this building. I wanted to build a staff entrance area first, and then add on the llama's sleeping barn secondly. We're also going to be designing a few little unique touches that kind of advertise the llama habitat, something that I think maybe we could do throughout the other habitats that we've already got in here, just to give everything a little bit of a refresh and really point out what animals we have in these locations. But because of the way that Old Town has been designed and the way that things have developed, there's been a lot of changes where animals have been moved into new habitats, or ones that we'd started hadn't quite come out very well, and we've had to make some adjustments. But now that I've kind of got a feel for what's going to be in this area, I can pretty much confidently say that we're almost finished here, and it's just going to be a case of balancing out everything and finishing off the decorative items and areas within the outskirts of those habitats and buildings. Once that's done, we can actually move on to a brand new area of Arcadia, and I don't know what to do. So if you guys have any suggestions, let me know. What do you want to see? Do we want to do a themed area, or take it to a different biome and create something completely different here? Do we want to go for something a little bit more Arctic? Although I would hesitate to do that right now until we get on a better financial footing, because the costs of coolers and stuff to keep snow and things in there might be a little bit too much. But we could do a wetlands area. That's something that I'd really thought about doing, because this large body of water surrounding Old Town needs some sort of feed into it. So I was thinking about creating like a mountain range of some description that we could then add extra water flows going in, and a nice wetlands area, so that all of that water eventually drains into that large space around Old Town. Anyway, we've put in a basic fence using the rusted iron poles and some mesh, and then adjusted our barriers to fit. And here we are again, just doing a little bit of terraforming, because I wanted a nice little area that kind of was almost like a little hill or a little rocky outcrop that we would put on a scratching post or some sort of enrichment item to drive the llama up there and give a nice little bit of height into this build. So we're coming in with our rock work here, just making a nice little surround, bringing everything all the way around to encircle it all, so it doesn't look like just this flat textured hill. It's just a much better idea when you're building these things to give them some sort of definition, so they don't just look like something that's been plonked down there with very little thought. I don't have a lot of thoughts when I'm actually building stuff. Everything's very much on the fly. I don't do any planning. So that's basically where I'm at the moment. I'll make a hill and then be like, right, okay, we need a board around this, and then we need to put some foliage in. So it's all very much layers and layers and layers. You have your base layer, then you add like a little bit of texturing on there, and then you put in your shades, your dry brushing, all of that sort of stuff. Very much like painting. Speaking of painting, we're coming in with our terrain brush now and just doing some flat colours all the way through that will then merge into some soil, grass and all of that sort of stuff as well. I want to make sure that I've got rock textures wherever I have rocks, so then we can merge into soil and eventually grass. It just makes the whole build stand out a lot more, and you'll see as we're going around with this brush that it already adds an extra dimension to it. So I would imagine the grass has been worn down through staff and animals coming in and out of those habitat areas, and then we have this large kind of area where generally you'd have a lot more wear and tear on the habitat itself, so that the grass never has a chance to fully grow back, and then some lighter patches where we have nice fresh and green grass in there. And I just think it looks really nice. You've got that instant like differential between the textures of the basic landscape of the habitat, and you can then come in and put your trees in. Now I really like to always put my trees in first because it gives me an idea of where I'm going to be creating these small scenes, and you can see there's still a large gap in the actual habitat itself. What I'm doing here, I'm just putting this herb scent enrichment marker in, and I just need to make some adjustments to make sure that the animals can actually reach it. It is now accessible, but it makes no difference because in the end, when I finally get this tamarind tree in there, I swap the herb scent enrichment marker out and we put a tamarind tree right on the top of there, because I think that's a really nice kind of place for that. You can go there, you can see these llamas at the top of the crest of that hill scratching their backs on a tamarind tree, and we put a little bit of foliage in there just to finish it all off. So we put in our enrichment items and our trees, and that gives us the indication of where we're going to start creating our foliage scenes. So we'd come back in, make sure that we have the right foliage settings for our animals, and you can see we need, it's about I'd say 20% coverage is our limit for this habitat. But because we've already kind of marked out where we're going to be doing these things, it's nice and easy to just put those in, and you can keep an eye on that marker and watch as it increases to make sure that you're not overfilling that habitat space with greenery. And we came in with sunflowers. I think they're hydrangea bushes, and then the usual bracken and bramble bushes. After that, we used some tick seed just to bulk it out and give a little flat texture so that the bushes and stuff merge nicely into the basic terrain painting that we've done. That's something that I would suggest you do when you're doing these sort of things. It's really important to have like some flat surfaces and smaller textured plants just to lead up into a larger patch of greenery and stuff like that. It just makes it a nice, it's got more of a natural flow to it, I think. And then, as you can see, we're filling in these areas where we don't have the long grass because it then looks a little bit more set in place. Like, that's how it always should have been there. And you can make slight adjustments to the terrain painting and stuff as you go if you ever create anything that looks particularly spectacular that you want to keep in, but then you find that it doesn't really fit in very well with the actual textures of the painting that you've done. Just remember, nothing's ever set in stone in Planet Zoo is what I'm trying to say. You can always make these changes, and as you can see, I'm telling you now, we put those tomato plants in. I wanted to do that. I think they look really nice. And then we came over into this area here, which was a big empty space. And I don't like big empty spaces too much in my habitats. I think they just don't look like they fit. And I wanted to put in some of these little Easter Island style heads and then surround them with bracken and bushes and stuff again, just to give us a nice little pop right in the center of this habitat. It was quite difficult to kind of come up with stuff, and I did mull on a few ideas and things like that, but I'm pretty happy with how that one looks, and it just gives that little nod to a thematic change. Because obviously the llamas, they're not native to Europe and stuff, even though we do have a lot of llamas in the UK on farms. It's mainly alpacas actually, but llamas and alpacas have a lot of similarities. They like to spit in your face, I think. So anyway, we made some shelves here. I wanted to do some shelves in our backstage area just to bulk it out a little bit. I took a little bit of time deciding what my shelf was going to consist of because these aluminium sheets didn't quite work. They were too shiny. So I went with some wood from I think it's the aquatic pack, the wooden arbor wooden arbor sheeting. They went in really nice, got a recolor, and then we just built up our shelves. But I want to talk back about that little theme change. I wanted to make some references to the theme of these llamas because I think that just makes sense, and it's nice to just have slight interruptions in the basic European / Bavarian oldie English stuff that we've got here. It gives a nice contrast, and when you're kind of walking through these areas and you see something that's a little bit more significant or different, there's a really nice contrast there, and I think it really draws the eye. Anyway, that's just a little bit of an arty-farty way of me saying I did some different things this time. But back to our shelves, I wanted to stack these up with some fruit crates and fill them up with actual fruit this time rather than leaving them empty. Then just put a few trinkets and stuff, little wheels and things from the conservation pack on the shelves, and then a couple of buckets and stuff like that, just to really give these shelves some sort of substance. We don't want them empty. I did leave one of them empty, but then I came back later and filled them because I didn't think it looked too good. And then just put some fabrics and stuff on. These are menial things, and you don't actually have to do them because, like I've already said in this video, nobody actually sees these. The guests don't see them, the staff walk past them because there's no path here. They're not interactable objects, they're just nice decoration. But when I think back, I've been talking a lot about my original videos with some of you guys in the comments, and I would never have thought to do this. Everything was just kind of flat pack stuff, but creating these videos has given me an opportunity to really express myself and go out of my comfort zone and learn new things on the go. And I think if I didn't have this as an outlet, I wouldn't be doing this. I think I'd have given up on Planet Zoo a long time ago because the learning curve is really difficult. So if you are playing for the first time or you're struggling with your builds and stuff, don't worry about it. Feel free to be impatient and get annoyed at it and then put it away for a couple of weeks. Watch some videos, get some inspiration and come back. I got a lot of my inspiration from Paulsley, Rudy, Leaf, Simply Savannah, and Delay Designer. They were all big creators that I really look up to, and I watched a lot of their videos to get my kind of inspiration, but I didn't try to recreate what they do. I wanted to discover my own kind of style and build methods, and I think that's the most important thing. Watch all of these videos and stuff, but don't do things that they do, because that's not you. Discover your own creativity is what I'm trying to say in a really convoluted way. And that's where I found my enjoyment in the game, because there are frustrations with it, but when you see that finished object and you see the finished habitats and stuff, and I just get a really nice sense of satisfaction from completing something. So if you ever kind of look at a creator and be like, I'll never be like that, well, just don't try to be like that. Try to be you and try to enjoy the game, because it's an incredible game and there's so much that you can do in there. And it's just about having a little bit of patience with it all and finding that right thing that'll set you off on your way. And I think it kind of happened for me somewhere through the Saltwell Park series, Saltwell Safari Park, where I just started doing things and experimenting. And initially you saw a lot of my failings and stuff in there, and I talk about how things don't work, and I still get that in here. But because my builds are getting more and more detailed, I don't have a lot of time to talk about where things went wrong. So things still do go wrong. Nothing is perfect, and I frequently will look at a build that I've completed when I've put an episode out and go, I don't like that. Another thing I need to mention, the skunks don't live where the skunks live anymore. The Aldabra tortoise live there now, and I need to show that at some point, but it's awful. I had to move them, and I may actually remove that habitat altogether. Anyway, back to this build, because I went on a wild tangent there. We're just putting in these final bits and pieces in the staff area to finish it all off. You saw I did like a little open door thing. I did have to test that after recording to see if staff could actually get into the habitat, and they can. They do clip through it a little bit, but I thought just having a nice open door there would be a nice little touch. And then over here, I wanted to create some unique education boards. We did copy over the ones from the deer habitat, and I think they still look okay there, but I may change them at some point because the theme of those ones is a little bit too much of a stark contrast with the theme of this actual habitat, which is more focused in the natural habitat of the llama, which is South America. So we made some South America themed education boards, and I played around a lot with little bits and pieces here, but I eventually decided that it was going to take a lot of work for something that was really quite small. So rather than trying to fill in all of the gaps, we put these stone slabs in, and that was it. And these come from the South America pack, so that's our little education board. And I think that looks cool, and we do eventually set it back a little bit more and then copy it across so that there's some education boards right where the guests can see our llamas sleeping. Now over to this building, and this is going to be more of a classically designed building because it is part of Old Town. So we're coming back in with our ivy. Lighting I played around a lot with. You can see we've got some lampposts in there because I did have a dark period where I ended up decorating with some lanterns and stuff. I actually need to do a full nighttime overhaul of Old Town because there's not much lighting in there at all, and that kind of needs to be addressed because I'd like this place to look nice at night as well as during the day. We get some lovely like shots of the sun rising and stuff where you get the shadows just moving across, and it looks really, really powerful and cool. I would just like it to be that nice at nighttime. The one thing I am missing though, when I did Northlands, we had this lovely tundra biome and we used to get the Aurora Borealis happening, and I miss that so much. That's the one thing that I don't like about doing a European zoo. You don't get that Aurora Borealis, which is a big shame. But we get some lovely rain effects, so that is a little bit of a counter offer to that. Anyway, you can see we're doing our traditional Old Town style decorating with lots of ivy creeping up through the buildings and a lot of like little bits and pieces like the decals and stuff to show some wear and tear. And I really liked using these South American like signs and then syncing the actual editable signs into the back of them to create a nice frame. That was really cool, and that became a theme throughout this little island, which is essentially the llama's island. And then we just have this staff building in here, which is kind of like a residual staff building for like that gives service to the other islands of Old Town because it's actually right in the middle of the two. So came in with some mulch, little bits of decorating here. I wanted to put a fountain in. I have put it in and I'm not too keen on it. You will see us building that and putting that in place later on in the video. I'd like to know your thoughts on it. Should I keep it in? Should I remove it and just replace it with more foliage? Because I feel that that might be a better thing to do. Just drop me a comment. Let me know what you think of the fountain itself. Maybe it's because I don't have a lot of experience with them and it just wasn't really gelling right for me. But back to this. Everything looking really good. Coming in with more ivy, more like decorative stuff. We got that ivy coming all the way around and sinking in, and then it gradually peters out as it rises up the building where it hasn't quite grown in. Then I believe these were aster flowers, and then we came in again with some leaves and the azaleas, and then once again bracken, bramble bushes, all of the other residual little bits and pieces to flesh out the build. A couple of mixed trees in here. I wanted to play around with cypress, oak and a few others just to really flesh this one out and give it some nice like different textures in the trees, different colours in the leaves, and just play around with it all. I kind of like the fountain now that I'm doing this recording and looking at it back, but I'm still unsure. Maybe it's because the building behind it hasn't been completely decorated very well, but I just thought I didn't want to draw the eye. I thought it would be a bit too much. But coming back in with our last touches here, and I really like how this one's turned out. It's been nice to come back and do a little bit more like decorative stuff in the surrounding areas, not focusing too much on our habitat, which is already finished, and then just finishing off this actual island piece. Because we do need to go back and develop Old Town and finish off those little patches that have been missed where guests would just walk. Because there's not actually anything to look at. There's no habitat or anything. They're literally just placeholders or parts of like terrain and landscaping. But I don't like to leave anything unturned. Like, everything must be decorated. And I can imagine that's going to fry my PC at some point, but we'll just see how that goes. But yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this. It's been a lot of fun to come in and just play around with foliage, textures, and using the terrain paintbrushes and stuff. And I'm really happy with the result here. So we've got a little bit of blackthorn going in again, which I think is a great thing to use. I wouldn't put blackthorn on its own though, because it's quite stark, and it's nice to have it like interfering and intercepting other textures and colours. It's mainly because the colour palette of the blackthorn is very bright. It's got a very like standout-ish texture to it. So it's nice to have it surrounded by other green elements, so you've got that nice flow going between those shades of green. And that's just how I like to use blackthorn. It also works very well as like a barrier bush, so you can kind of like put it up around fences and having it kind of grow around the fence, which I think is a really nice effect as well. The last thing we need to do is finish off this little tip of this island, and I didn't know what to do here. I was a little bit kind of nervy about it because I thought I'd just be repeating the same pattern. So we threw down some cypress trees all the way along here just to give a nice clean looking texture. And then I made a cypress forest, a small cypress forest, very small cypress forest, and then filled it in with a load of bushwork and brambles and bracken bushes. I just thought this would be a nice overgrown kind of patch to have at the like first entrance that you come to when you're coming into this section, if you come at it from this bridge. Speaking of which, we've got 3 bridges in Old Town that we need to decorate, and they're going to be coming as well. I'll probably do that as like a little filler episode as we barrel on down towards episode 20. Today is episode 15, so this is coming up to one of my longest running Planet Zoo series, and I'm not bored. So that bodes very well for the future of Arcadia Zoo. Considering this was going to be a long-term project, it's quite nice that I'm still enjoying it. And here we are making a little bit of a decorative signpost to point out that there are llamas nearby. And this was once again looking to contrast the themes and start bringing in something a little bit different to the repetitive textures and stuff that we've got going on here, which I do think look really nice, but I still think we need to start putting in these different themes and colours that accentuate those animals that we have in these places. We put 3 of these in, and they kind of lead you around nicely to the actual habitat for the llamas. And then I put some seats in because I don't have seats anywhere here, and I know I don't see guests using them a lot, but let's do it. And you can hear now something's starting, and I think that means it's almost time for our tour. So I'm going to let you guys enjoy the tour and say thank you again for watching. I really appreciate your time today. If you have not subscribed to me yet, please do. I don't like to do call of actions mid-video, so if you have made it this long, please give me a subscribe. It would be really nice to have you along for the ride. You can see I'm faffing around with pathing here because that was a little bit of an issue, and we ended up doing like a nice green path all the way through. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, bringing it to you and showing you. Please enjoy the tour and our lovely llamas.
This one is